Welcome back to RGR Football. It is finally here. Within 24 hours, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to kick off against the Houston Texans, and football 2020 is a real thing all of a sudden, right?
Oh, man, I can't wait. It just feels like it's been forever. Like they won the Super Bowl, 3 years ago? It's been something like that?
Sure, yeah, before my last kid. Yeah,
I
remember that. Oh, back in the day. So, folks, today we're going to have Matt Derrick coming up here in a little bit from Chiefs Digest, give us a little bit of ins and outs. We're going to give you our game plan coming here. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and the sub and the bell notification right now so you don't miss anything as these Chiefs look to run it back and defend their world championship starting right now. I'll start off because I think it's more prescient that they have to get the defense off to a good start. So I'm going to tell you this. They listed their depth chart as a nickel defense. We all know that there's a decent group of receivers on that Texans team. I think they're going to come out in the nickel. I think it's not going to have Willie Gay right away. I think they have to attack with that. And whether that's blitzing off the nickel or whatever, I'd like to see Rashad Fenton come at somebody. I think they might try to get him a little bit of run up the middle, but I think if you can be aggressive with that very first drive, I think that's key for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we've seen Bill O'Brien's tendency against the Chiefs. They think that they can't stop the run, so they're probably going to put a good amount of David Johnson out there, especially if they come out in nickel, and they're going to have to be able to get both Colin Saunders and Mike, not Mike Pennell. He's suspended, so it's not going to be Pennell. It's going to be Noddy in the middle there to try to get some of the early down usage going for those two, and then be able to get off the field a little bit here and there. So I think that if they are in the nickel, we're going to see Willie Gay come in. I would imagine halfway through the first series if they continue to have the ball. So I'm hoping actually to see some progression from Anthony Hitchens. He's on this team because he has to be at this point, and you're in the second year in this defense. Now you have to show that you're going to at least help get some of that back in terms of value. So that's what I'm really looking forward to from the linebackers that we're going to see on the field early in the game. And it's funny on Twitter on Tuesday, the whole Aaron Donald is an average run defender thing was going around. So maybe think about Chris Jones and how people are going to take him playing against the run. So I'd like to see him get a few maybe tackles for loss in this game early to help kind of settle everything down and just show that, they're in this defense now. So let's just kind of take it as it is and get the ball back to the offense.
I certainly hope so as well. I mean, after this contract, that's really one of the things that you want to see him improve. You want to see him take as much tenacity into an expected running down as anything else. And my money, after all the hubbub up and forth with his contract, my money's on Chris Jones looking to be dominant. So I'm all for it. So if let's flip over to the other side. If you're designing this offensive game plan, what's priority for you?
So I think that you want to use as much of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as you possibly can. We saw early in Kareem Hunt's, against the Patriots, he was able to really dominate that game. You have a rookie who doesn't have any NFL film. Even you don't really know what you're getting from a rookie on any team for these defenses. So I think that it's going to be important for them to establish not him necessarily in the run game as much, but also maybe split them out wide a little bit, get them on some linebackers one-on-one. They're going to play man coverage, at least from everything we learned last year. So you want to get him on linebackers as much as possible, get him some chunk yard plays early. And I think that you start to get that going, and then the defense is really screwed because you have to worry about him. Then you got Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins. This is just going to be, I think that if you can establish that he is in fact a dominant force like you projected he was going to be, that leaves the defense with absolutely nothing to do. So I'm targeting as much as I can, maybe not necessarily running the football with him on the ground as much, but you're definitely going to throw him in there. You drafted him in the first round because you want to be as effective when you run the ball as you do when you throw it to him. So I want to start at least with him, just in the sense that your defense doesn't really know what they're getting in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And now you get to show why he was a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Zach Cunningham is probably the matchup that the Texans are looking to put on him. I think that's a mismatch still, to tell you the truth. How many touches do you expect for CEH?
I'm going to go with 20 touches. I think that's a pretty good, reasonable expectation for a rookie, and probably more, maybe 13 rushes, 7 catches. That's what I'm going to go for this week. And I still think he can get upwards of 2-3 touchdowns, especially if they're going to target him in the red zone.
Now, if I'm the Texans, I'm game planning for Travis Kelce too because of the destruction that he wrought on us being the Texans last season. So on the flip side, if I'm Andy, I'm like, Travis, you're going to be a decoy for the first quarter. I'm going to be looking, especially with Eric Murray possibly starting at safety. We'll see if that actually comes true. I'm looking at play action and going over the top multiple times in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think that obviously the gravity that Tyreek Hill brings to any defense, the attention he brings, if they're already game planning for Travis Kelce, you have to figure Sammy Watkins has an opportunity to have a pretty big game. He should be, by all accounts, fully healthy going into the game. And we saw against the Jaguars when he's on, he's impossible to stop. So I think that he's got that opportunity to have a really big game, especially the game plan for Travis Kelce, and already have to worry about Tyreek Hill. So that's what I'm going to see him.
Well, and I'll tell you what, the putting it together, I think if you hit him hard first and then you come back with Travis, you can just wear him down and wear him down and wear him down. I'm really looking forward to that.
So many ways they can attack.
There is. And you have to take advantage of the other side of the ball too. You have to stop Deshaun as much as you can. And for me, the number one thing on the game plan that goes into the rookies in particular is actually not Willie Gay. I think he'll get his snaps. I think he'll get some rust off. But I think it's about L'Jarius Sneed, to tell you the truth, because I have a feeling they're going to walk out with Antonio Hamilton on the outside in the nickel base with Fenton in at the actual nickel back.
Interesting.
And I'm not so sure that's going to go over that well. So I'm looking for, as they send Fuller, as supposedly Cooks is going to be able to play, so they send them deep and try to hit Cobb underneath. I want L'Jarius Sneed out there. So I'm trying to get the rookies, the young guys, even Bo Peep Keys eventually, in there early and often, get them exposed to the NFL game.
Yeah, see, I read it more as they're going to have Fenton on the outside in that nickel package with Hamilton coming in as the nickel, which really seems to be more of where he fits in terms of maybe a nickel / safety for this defense. You have a guy in Fenton whose physicality is really his biggest weapon on the outside, and that's what I would do personally would be to put him on the outside, especially early in the season where we don't have Rashad Breeland. You have a guy who's been in the defense and he's a more physical guy. He's got decent long speed, so he's kind of like a match with Ward in that sense. That's what I would do, but I mean, we're obviously going to see. It's the first game of the season. Who really knows what they're going to try out there? They could just come out with Bo Peep Keys on the very first snap. We don't know. We just know that Tyrann Mathieu is going to be out there doing everything in the backfield.
Absolutely. And that's what he does. That's why he's here. So for me, the last thing is that coordination aspect. I think Juan Thornhill's going to play. I don't know if he hits 50% of the defensive snaps or not. I think they're going to be a little bit reserved with him. But it's up to Mathieu to coordinate with Frank Clark, in my opinion, to get everybody on the same page. Obviously, Anthony Hitchens will be making the calls, but to be able to play back and forth, the back end needs to know what's going on with the rush. And I think this game in particular, I don't know if we'll see Dorian Daniel in that shadow role we saw last year, or if maybe Willie gets some time in that. I actually wouldn't mind that at all. But I think it's got to be more coordinated than just, hey, we're going to send something at them. And so the coordination for me has to come Frank, Tyrann, back and forth. Those huddles are going to be important in week one.
Yeah, and we saw last year that Deshaun Watson is still a very dangerous quarterback. They put up 31 points in the game they lost. I mean, you do that in most playoff games, you're going to win, I think. So they still have the offensive firepower even without Deshaun Watson. It's DeAndre Hopkins, especially if Cooks is able to go. They still have a good trio of wide receivers if Will Fuller is completely healthy throughout the season to be able to throw the ball down the field with Fuller and attack underneath. So being on the same page, getting that pass rush early, they're going to have a lot of different guys they can trot out on that defensive line. And I'm excited to see Mike Danny get some role in there. That's actually what I'm most excited for on the defensive line. But then, you match that with Mathieu in the back end, getting everyone lined up. We're going to see his true knowledge of the system with all of these young guys and experienced guys and how we can line them up in the back end.
Absolutely. I'm with you on Dana too. In fact, I was just going to ask you, give me the sneaky guy, the guy that isn't expected to make a big impact. Give me one guy you want to see that you think can make an impact, and then give me what you think is going to happen in that game.
Yeah, it's going to be Mike Dana. I think he's probably going to get a sack in this game. He's got a lot of pass rush ability for a guy that, didn't play much last year at Michigan. He was more of an interior guy, role player. So I think that having him come in and be unleashed on this defense, on offensive lines, really you didn't see much of him at Michigan. He's going to have an opportunity to really showcase what he can do, and I do think he's going to get a sack in this game.
I'm hoping that you're right. I'm pulling for him too. I'm eager to see what he does.
Just my guy, man.
Right. For me, it's going to be Darrell Williams because I think everyone's going to be so concentrated on Clyde. I think it's going to be kind of a let down the defense. They're not going to pay as much attention to Darrell. We've seen what he can do with the ball in his hands, especially in the pass game. So I'm going to say that he's going to be a sneaky contributor. I'm going to call this game. I don't know, man. I've been hemming and hawing. The weather's going downhill, so I'm going to drop it just a little bit. I'm going 31-24 Chiefs.
Yeah, I still think that they're going to score. This is going to be – I think it's going to be closer than fans want it to be. Exactly. I think they want the Chiefs to blow them out, but I think that Deshaun Watson's going to keep them in this game pretty much to the end. So I'm going to go 38-21. I think that's probably – they're going to get an extra sorry, I meant 28. So 38-28. That's what I'm going for, not 21. 38-28. That's what I'm going with.
All right. Well, we're going to find out what Matt Derrick thinks is going to happen, folks. So right now, let's go talk to Matt. And welcome back to RGR. We've been talking a little bit of football, and it's almost here. By the time this goes up, you're under 24 hours from when the Chiefs are going to kick off, and that means Matt Derrick is back. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Good to see you.
Oh, a lot of question marks, right? We're finally getting there. And we talked a little bit on the podcast about some of the minutia, the details, but I want to start in general this is a class in the rookie group that's going to play, and they're going to play early. Pretty rare for such a championship roster to need this many. Who do you think has the biggest role out of that rookie class this first game?
I mean, I still think probably the same answer every game is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll see. I mean, all indications are that you are going to see a ton of Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this offense, whether it's running the football, whether it's catching the football, whatever it may be. I still don't think you're going to see a lot of him on third down. I mean, I think that's going to be Darrell Williams' time to shine. But all indications are that the Chiefs are going to get him the football. I think they're going to get him the football early. I think that's the way that they really, that's the X factor. I mean, that's the one person on this offense that the Texans can't prepare for because they've never seen him in this offense. And I'd be really interested, in how maybe the Texans are preparing, because I would think you'd have to go back and look more at Kareem Hunt in this offense and go back to 2018 with Mahomes and Hunt to maybe see how Reid might use him. But at the same time, I mean, Andy Reid's changed since then, so it's going to be different. And that's the one I'm most excited to see, because I think it could be really creative to see how Andy Reid puts him out there in the very first game of the season. Yeah.
I mean, they could feed him right off the bat, or they could really set him up. I'm leaning more towards the setup phase, but a lot of that revolves around Travis Kelce, who was held out of practice early in the week, but seems to be doing all right. What's your gut feeling on whether he's 100% or not?
Yeah, it was a full go on Tuesday, and Tuesday, it's the final practice before a game, so it's a light workout, no contact, nothing serious. So it's hard to tell from that. But no, I mean, this indication is that everybody's ready to go. So didn't really get a lot of clarity on what the issue was with Kelce and his knee. But at least what we heard from Andy Reid on Tuesday, everybody's ready to go. Now we'll see if, like I said, some people might be on a pitch count. But at this point, it looks like Kelce's a full go and should not be limited in this offense in any way.
So if we're trying to get creative, if Kelce's him, I expect him to get a large share of the targets early. They tried to combat him last year with Lonnie Johnson, a big safety / nickel kind of guy. New coordinator down there. Do you expect to see more of the same? Do you expect to see him doubled? How are they going to treat him versus Hill? What do you think is going to go on?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because, Weaver is still from that, that Belichick kind of tree. So it's not going to be a total departure from what they did under Romeo Crennel. But everything I hear is that he's pretty aggressive, that he's going to go get after you. And so that's why I think it'll be interesting to see how they approach Kelce in particular, because, we know it. I mean, there's only so many guys to go around. And if you go out there and you put Travis Kelce in single coverage all night long, he's going to eat you alive. And even if they do put a safety out there on him. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's, and simply a biggest thing is that I don't think even the Chiefs know for sure and expect how the Texans are going to come out here. No one's got to show their hands with no preseason games. So we're all kind of flying blind on what we think everybody's going to do in week one.
And that couple of things. that goes to show that we've all been complaining about how strange it is to not see any preseason games. I'm sure the staffs are feeling the same way about evaluating players, but honestly, this leads up to a lot more intrigue for week one. And I think it leaves you a lot more options as how to hit somebody where they're not looking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, clearly, the Chiefs can have a lot of surprises up their sleeve offensively. But also at the same time, Texans can have the same thing for them defensively. I mean, you just don't know what anybody's running. You don't know what their bases look like. I mean, that's really the biggest thing that you would be able to get out of the preseason games, at least, is what's a team vanilla defense and offense look like. And then you can kind of extrapolate, maybe guess after that, and based on past performances. But this time, you're really looking at a total X factor. I mean, it's a total unknown. And yeah, I mean, that's got coaches around the league all worried because they don't know what to expect. And other than, and Andy Reid even talked about it a little bit on Tuesday to say that, yeah, you know what, strange things happen in week one every year. And it might happen this year with even greater frequency because nobody knows what's going to happen.
So you're saying Sherman's going to get 2 touchdowns?
Well, that seems like it would be the logical thing to do. I mean,
see, I like the way you think.
Just feed Anthony Sherman, right?
Absolutely. That's what I'm looking for. Last year, the Texans had some success running some stunts up front. And we know that there's been, if anywhere there's turnover, it's been along the offensive line on that side of the ball. And I think Assembly's got the experience that I think helps him out there. I don't know that that's a big detraction, but he has been a little physically banged up. How do you feel about him physically, and how do you feel about Wiley might be being a target for them to try and exploit in the pass rush?
I mean, I think that's probably going to be the direction that they would have to go. I mean, I think the Chiefs are just really strong on the outside, and Mitchell Schwartz has had some pretty good games against J.J. Watt over the years. So yeah, I mean, the weak spot in the Chiefs' offensive line is up the middle. But you look back, going back to the regular season game for sure. I think the Chiefs, you'd have to say, are in a stronger position because even that game against the Texans last year, that offensive line was really banged up. You had multiple injuries along there. You were missing Fisher. Wiley wasn't 100%. You had some guys banged up. And right now, I mean, I think this group 100% healthy with Wiley on the right side, having Assembly now on the left. I think that's a stronger group, and I think they're stronger on the interior than they were a year ago. But yeah, I mean, still, it's a question mark. I mean, and that's why you look at the roster and what the Chiefs have. They've got some veteran guys on the interior, and and part of that I think is certainly just to being prepared for anything, but part of it too is to have some veteran guys behind the line just in case things do happen.
And if you've seen it before, you've seen it before. There's no replacement for experience. That is not true on the other side of the ball. Well, there's going to be several rookies playing, a lot of young guys in general. I mean, the Chiefs are going to start a corner with 1 year experience in part-time play. If you're the Texans, are you trying to attack between the tackles with the run game or go try to get over the top first?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I would, if I'm the Texans, I'd be really tempted to challenge the Chiefs deep early, especially because there's going to be a couple of things at play. I mean, you've got Juan Thornhill possibly on the back end. Is he 100%? Is that a position that you can attack? I mean, the first thing, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I think I come out and I look for 2 things. I look for where Tyrann Mathieu is, and I look for where Traverse Ward is.
The other way.
And yeah, wherever those 2 guys aren't, that's where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. Because you're right. I mean, you're probably at times going to see it quite a few times, I would think, see Rashad Fenton and L'Jarius Sneed out there at the same time. And yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson's going to be licking his chops when he sees that and thinking that that's a situation that he can attack. And, and if the Chiefs are in and we talk about Juan Thornhill being possibly on a pitch count, hey, is it Dan Sorensen? Is it Tedrick Thompson on that back end? If either one of them are on the back end, that's another thing that I think I'm attacking, so yeah, I think that the Texans are I think they want to be able to push the ball downfield, but at the same time, like I think we talked about, this is a game of possessions. They don't want to get into a 12-13 possession shootout with the Chiefs.
Right.
They want to take their shots, and if they get a shot, if they can get a big score or a big play, they'll absolutely take it. But I think they want to try and establish the run, control the clock, because if you can limit the Chiefs' number of possessions, I think that's your better chance to win.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, testing Juan Thornhill early is probably what I would expect to see the most, because you just don't know if he can run or not. If he's full speed and you can get him to the sidelines, that's the first place that you want to look. So I'm looking for those outside patterns. But like you said, there's question marks. Derek Notty's going to be back in there, but the linebacker group is still, I think, a bit in flux. And even if it's not, I think the Texans probably feel like they can run in there. So I'm looking for a little bit of that feed, really downhill type runs.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not completely sold on the Texans backfield, but I wasn't sold on the Texans backfield last year. And, they got a running back from the Chiefs in the last week of the preseason, and they ended up running the ball pretty well.
Yeah.
So they've got the offensive line that they can do that. They can exert their will. And you're right. I mean, the Chiefs, I like their long-term potential for the linebacking group, especially with Willie Gay. But, you're probably going to see a lot of Ben Neiman and Damian Wilson out there. And that is probably another situation that, the Texans feel like, hey, if we can get guys to the second level, they can make some guys miss and maybe pick up some extra yards.
This brings me to, I think, probably the most important aspect, and that's if you can't get pressure, at least controlling Deshaun Watson's escapability. And so that brings me to two things. On this offensive line, you have ex-Chief Zach Fulton likely at right guard. You have a young guy in Titus Howard out at right tackle. Are they going to focus overloads and those kind of things, attack them from that side? And is Dorian O'Daniel going to be the guy backing them up like he did the last time they played the Texans?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and especially because you say it that way, and I'm like, okay, this is what we were always told. Dorian O'Daniel is the chess piece. This is your chance. I'm at a complete loss. I really don't know what the Chiefs look like defensively right now. And the problem is I don't know if Steve Spagnuolo knows what they look like either.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see them using a lot of different looks and a lot of different concepts. Thought it was pretty interesting, at least in the Chiefs depth chart that they came out with. They only had 2 starting linebackers, and they decided to go with 3 starting corners. That's not necessarily completely indicative of what they're at least thinking, but it's probably at least maybe a concession to what the NFL is now, that it's that 5 defensive backs in the field is standard and not a sub package anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they've had some success against Watson in the past, so I would kind of expect that. I don't think they're going to reinvent the wheel, but at the same time, I think they're going to have to do some things differently, because if it's just a matter of trying to keep Watson in the pocket, that I think is a concern. Because if your idea is you're just going to let Deshaun Watson try and beat you with his arm, with his secondary concerns, I think that's a problem. I mean, because I think he might be able to do that. Yeah,
you have to force him a little bit more than you've had to in years past, right?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. You can't just contain him. I mean, I think they're going to have to try and get some pressure on him, and they did that in the postseason game. I mean, that was certainly a big part of the defense coming up and making some big plays, so they can do that. But that was maybe at times a little bit of desperation when they really started getting after that and going. This case, I think they may have to do it from the get go.
Well, and if they don't spot him 14 points, I think that probably helps quite a bit.
That would help considerably.
I can even see it going the reverse, where the Chiefs could be up a couple of scores early. If that is the case, is that something that allows more experimentation with the young guys getting playing time, maybe more so than we think if it's a close game?
I mean, it depends. I mean, I think it would have to be multiple scores, like probably 3 or 4 scores before you see wholesale changes. I mean, I think they've got a game plan. I mean, I think they've got a plan about how much they want to use these young guys. And you're right. I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting. I mean, outside of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who we seem to think that he's going to get a lot of touches, I think they are going to try and get the other guys introduced slowly. I mean, Willie Gay is not going to start. Right. He's going to be in sub packages. So I don't think that they're going to want to necessarily put him in a spot where he's going out there for 80% of the snaps in his first game out. I think L'Jarius Sneed's absolutely going to see some possessions, but once again, I don't think it's that, he's an every down guy right now at corner. I think they want to, limit how much exposure he gets. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be slowly working those guys in for the most part, as long as your name is not, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Well, I think it's going to be really telling about how much those guys get time. I hope that it gets to that point where it's 3 or 4 scores so we can see some of the bulk of the young guys. They're going to have to play as the season wears on, so I'm looking forward to it. General feeling, how do you think that this comes out for the Kansas City Chiefs?
There's a small part of me that thinks that this could be one of those wacky week 1 games that doesn't play out the way anybody expects, and that maybe both teams are rusty. And and we're talking about two teams that can run up and down the field, and all of a sudden it's 13-9 at the end of the game. I don't think it's going to happen. Now watch it happen, and I'll look like an idiot. But I think both these teams are going to run up and down the field. I think Texans are going to be able to take advantage of the Chiefs, question marks in the secondary. At the same time, I mean, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to execute. I think they're going to be able to move the ball when they want to. Mm-hmm. I am going with a slugfest shootout. Chiefs 41, Texans 34.
Oh, I like that. I will have to come back with mine, folks. You will see that here shortly because now I have to rethink everything. Thank you for your time, Matt.
Thanks, Ryan.
And folks, we'll catch you next time. Enjoy the game. We'll have after effects for you when we're done. Thanks for watching this one. We'll catch you next time.